All right, I want to bring in James Clemente, a retired special agent for the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit who was stationed at Guantanamo Bay from October to December 2002 to consult on interrogation methods. James, I want to get your sense of the film's depiction of the CIA detainee program and the use of torture. And before that, I just want to put on the record, this is the letter from then CIA Director Leon Panetta to Senator John McCain, saying the detainee who gave information that led to bin Laden was not in the CIA detainee program. We first learned about the facilitator, Courier's nom de guerre. The Courier is this key, Abu Ahmed, who's the key figure in this, from a detainee not in CIA custody in 2002. It is also important to note that some detainees who were subjected to enhanced interrogation techniques attempted to provide false or misleading information about the facilitator Courier. These attempts to falsify the facilitator Courier's role were alerting. What was your sense of watching this film about where it ends up coming down and how truthful it is about the methods used?
Well, Chris, thanks for having me. And first of all, I would agree with Mr. Panetta. That's an accurate characterization of what I saw and what I experienced and what my colleagues experienced there. But the film, unfortunately, at least leaves the impression, and I think it's a strong impression, that were it not for the torture that preceded the rapport-based techniques that you'd see in the film, were it not for the torture, that the rapport-based techniques wouldn't have worked. In fact, in reality, the torture, all it did was delay the effectiveness of the report-based techniques that the FBI has been using for decades, many decades, to successfully get hardened serial killers, for example, to confess to very heinous crimes. It works with detainees as well. In fact, what I did when I went down there, and the very first interrogation plan that they showed me, was filled with just horrendous behavior, escalating all the way to torture and to sending people to third countries to be tortured. So that kind of stuff was ineffective. That's why they asked us to come down to help them improve their plans. And then to show them how rapport-based works, I took what they said was their worst detainee, the guy who was not talking at all. He was doing nothing but reciting the Quran from memory when they were interrogating him. And I took him and I used rapport-based techniques to build a bridge. He's a human being, and we can connect that way no matter who you are. And the fact is that in 11 days, I got him to go from complete silence to, Jim, my friend, what can I do for you? And he was working for us at that point.
You know, I think part of what we're doing here is going exactly where we don't want to go as a country, which is having a conversation about whether torture works or not. I don't think anyone credibly says that you can't get information from torture. Of course you can. Right. The question is that information reliable, and could you have gotten other ways without violating the law and violating the values? And that's why I think...
And also, should there just be a blanket prohibition the way there's a blanket prohibition on murder? Shooting children?
Because there is a blanket prohibition. And I think... One of the issues with this movie is that it shows war crimes being committed from the perspective of the CIA agents who committed those war crimes. And what that leaves out, fairly edited, is the perspective of everyone else who was under the same pressure, including CIA agents, who objected, who did not try to break the law or the minds or bodies of their fellow human beings at the time.
Jim.
Yes, but if you really, let's deal with that issue about whether you can actually get information from torture, because you're not dealing with average citizens here when you're talking about detainees. These are hardened people who are trained to resist torture, just like our military people are trained to resist torture. And in fact, what happens when you torture them is that you reinforce the negative stereotypes. You reinforce all the horrible things they've been taught about us. You need to undermine those expectations by treating them like human beings and build a bond with them. I don't believe that torture actually gets information.
All I wanted to say is, going with what Mr. Clemente said, I thought the most honest point in the movie was when the guy was put in the box and he was just saying anything. Yes. And it really, to me, showed that torture will, get someone to respond, but it's going to be bad information. That, I thought, was honest.
Yeah, but the whole film, and so many people who have watched the film have said, the impression that you get, both literally and impressionistically, is that in the absence of torture, we would not have been able to achieve what Americans consider consider the greatest achievement of the last decade, which is finding and killing Osama bin Laden. And that is what one of the things that makes this film so disgusting and so dangerous is that although you're right, and I think we can all agree that torture shouldn't be allowed even if it is beneficial, the reality from participating in torture debates is that Americans believe that torture is supportable, the ones who do, not because they don't realize it's brutal. So, I mean, you look at torture because you're an opponent and you look at these scenes and you think, wow, I'm recoiling from these scenes. Americans know that torture is brutal. That's why they think it works. They have supported torture because they believe that the people who are doing it to are primitive, violent, horrible savages who need to be treated brutally because that's the only way we can get information and that's the way we stay safe. That is what this film reinforces in every single conceivable way. And the worst part about it, as Mr. Clemente has so persuasively said, is that it is false. It's propaganda. It is CIA propaganda that this film, with hundreds of millions of dollars of a budget and all kinds of manipulative Hollywood techniques, are propagandizing Americans to believe. And that is what makes this film so pernicious.
Spencer, I want you to give you a chance to respond to that. I also want to talk about the once-in-a-generation happenstance of Glenn Greenwald and John McCain agreeing on something right after this break.